were actually trying to solve this problem, trying to wrap their brains around it. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about device grants and digital equity. And boy, do we have a couple of folks that you really want to hear from when it comes to this, because they've been working in a school district that has been grappling with this and are trying to come up with some answers. And so it's going to be fascinating to see the progress that they've made and what you can do too in your own district. So I want to welcome you to this video. My name is Matt Miller. I'm the author of Ditch That Textbook. For those of you that are joining us live, thank you so much for joining. We would love for you to check in the chat if you're watching. So just let us know who you are and where you're from and what you do. If you're watching this on a replay, then you've got all sorts of stuff all just lined up for you, ready to go. And so we're super excited to have you with us. So I want to kick it over real quick to my co-host, Holly Clark. Holly, you want to say hi to the nice people?
Hi, everyone from San Diego. And as the Infused Classroom series kind of creator, the two people here today with us are my co-authors. So I'm super excited for them. And they're the co-authors of the Microsoft Infused Classroom. Yay! Yay! So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and take a moment there and do a little introduction. So I'm going to go right below me down to Natasha first. Natasha, you want to do a real quick introduction? See, I'm doing like the Brady Bunch thing, right? I always point the wrong direction. Yeah. All right, Natasha, go for it.
Hey everyone, I'm Natasha Rachell. I'm a digital learning specialist for science all the way from Atlanta. And I'm a former high school science teacher and have weaved my way through professional development into the ed tech space. And best job I've ever had in my whole entire life, and super excited to be here with you guys today.
Fantastic. Wonderful. And then let's kick it over to Felisa. How about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Felisa Ford. I'm specialist Atlanta Public Schools. I've been in education for 27 years. I've been a classroom teacher, a high school administrator, and now I am loving what I'm doing with instructional technology and very happy to be here.
Excellent. And then this, Holly, their story and some of the things that are going on in their district really caught your eye pretty quick, right?
Well, I mean, I got to work with them as we were writing the Infused Classroom, and I was hearing that they were doing both Microsoft and Google, and that's what caught my eye because there's not a lot of schools doing both of those. And then I started to hear about how all these kids had devices, and I'm like, wait, this is Atlanta. It's a huge school, and I was working at a school that didn't have devices for everyone, so I wanted to hear the story, and that's where this came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just kind of kick this off. And I was wondering, Felice or Natasha, either one of you can take this and just, tell us sort of briefly how this all kind of came about. Like, how did this initiative to try to make more access to devices and internet all really get started?
So it kind of started way back in our ice storm. And if you've heard any of our story, this will sound familiar, but it started back in our ice storm that we had in Atlanta back in 2015. Ice, not snow. And we had a blanket of ice, like literally shield over the city within like 30 minutes. And at that point, we were not ready for, number one, access for our students. Number two, access to the internet or to a device. And we didn't have anything in place really for remote or distance learning. And so once that happened, we really were on like a fast forward track, to make sure that we had things in place so that should an ice storm happen again, not knowing that we would be beginning to prepare for coronavirus time, that we needed to have something in place. And so it started back then with training all of our teachers, making sure that they were ready to go and prepared for distance learning should that need arise again. And so we really leaned on Google back then, which has since merged into Google, Microsoft, tons of stuff. And so we started back then with kind of the training and the professional development aspect, and it has since, merged into the device and the access and the equity piece. And so we kind of started back with our Tablet to Read program, which is it started out to be a literacy initiative for our first and second graders. So all of our first and second graders across our district have a iPad. I actually have one sitting here, have an iPad device, and the program, we named it Tablet to Read. And so it started out to be literally a tablet to read. It has almost 40 apps on it, 19 of which do not require Wi-Fi access. So we were very deliberate. My partner, Rosalind, was very deliberate. She's the literacy digital learning specialists in making sure that we had apps that were accessible for our students if they did not have access to technology at home or access to the internet at home. And so this device was a back and forth from home to school thing. And we really saw a lot of success with that. And so we kind of, the whole plan for that program starts with first, second grade. So all of them have it. Then when they go up to third grade, it will move up with them. We'll then replenish the first graders, and then it'll move up for second, third, replenish the new first graders. And so that's kind of where it started. And then it merged over into middle school and high school with the continuation. We kind of umbrellaed the whole program called Digital Bridge. And so Felisa can talk to the middle and high school.
So for the high school, my goal was to make sure that our students had access, because we knew for high school students, it is so important that they have access not only for college applications, completing assignments, whether they're in AP classes. We wanted to make sure that once they got home, they were able to do those same things that they did while in school. So we searched for grants, opportunities that would help us with getting students access or devices. And we stumbled upon the Sprint 1 Million project, which was a lifesaving for us. And so through this grant, we were able to receive devices. At that time, it was hotspots, smartphones, or a tablet. So, and with this device, students have the device for the entire 4 years that they were in high school. This was a 5-year grant that we received. So they got free data every month, and they never lost data. So if they used all of their data, it just dropped down to, I think, 2 gigs from whatever it was. So things may have buffered, but students always had access, and it would re-up every month. So this was a life-changing opportunity for not just the students, but for the parents, because these devices would power up to 15 devices in a home. And one thing that was really great for us was that we knew that we had students in our district who, there may be multiple students in the district, maybe sharing one device, maybe not having hotspots or whatever. So this gave those families the opportunity to get a device in the hands of students, and also to make sure they had whatever they needed. So this was for high school. Fast forward to coronavirus, Sprint has really stepped up. They have opened it up. It was initially a high school program only. Now they've opened it up to K-12. So for any school district that is struggling with access, you might want to reach out to Sprint. And I think Matt put the link up, but it's the 1 Million project. They are providing access to students grades K-12 now. They have hotspots and phones, but you never pay for the data. So this is a great partnership. Another thing that we did for our middle school students, we partnered with T-Mobile, the Empowered Ed grant. And with T-Mobile, theirs was a little different from Sprint. They provided a hotspot, but they also provided a $200 credit towards a device. And so we chose the WinBook. So all of our middle school students, 6 through 12, received a laptop, a WinBook, and they also received a hotspot if they needed that access. So we have really gone one-to-one with middle school. With the onset of the coronavirus, we were with Sprint, we were going to give these laptops, these Chromebooks, to all of our 9th graders. But when that happened, we had to just turn on our wheels, revamp. And so the dedicated devices we had, we decided to, any student in our district who needed a device, they could have access to these devices, because we knew all of our students did not need a device. So this was a way for us to ramp up, getting a device into the hands of students. And when Sprint said, okay, K-12, we were like, okay, so now for any student K-8 who doesn't have access to the internet, we're going to also activate a hotspot for you. So when I tell you, we have been working overtime, getting these hotspots activated into the hands of students. And I believe if anything happens today, I can go work for Sprint, because I can activate a device, whether it's a hotspot, phone, or tablet. I can do it on-site or remotely, right?
On top of that, too, our city also opened Wi-Fi. Comcast, there's two more that have opened up Wi-Fi across the city of Atlanta. And so for students that don't have Wi-Fi access at home, the city of Atlanta, actually the telephone companies, I guess, have opened up Wi-Fi so that students can have access as well. We also, for students, so Felisa just said we covered a whole range of folks, even down to elementary with the Tablet to Read program. We have also had to dismantle our Chromebook carts at our schools just to make sure that our students had access at home. And so we do have our Chromebooks that were dedicated for testing that have since got sent home for these students. And our superintendent was actually on CNN yesterday morning. We have about 50,000 students in our district. According to her numbers yesterday, we still have about 6,000 students that do not have either a device or access. And so we're still, tirelessly working to make sure that we're able to cover 100% of our kids.
So when I say we turned it on a dime, we've been working nonstop trying to get students what they need in order to be successful.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like, with all of the work that you all have put in to make this a success, I think it's important to note for somebody who might like to try something like this, that you still do have students that don't yet have access. So, like you said, you turned it around on a dime, but it's not like perfectly 100% exactly where. But my guess is that it's probably leaps and bounds better. Like how can you, if you had to put your finger on how you can tell that this is making a difference, where are some places where you're really seeing that?
So we have a platform called My Backpack, and we're able to see analytics of students logging in, the apps that they're accessing via My Backpack. So we can see down to the grade level which students are logging in. This lets us know where we still need to target our focus of getting students what they need. But we're looking at the data, looking at the students doing the work. So this is how we are able to decide or focus on our next steps. So that's
My Backpack is ClassLink. So we have branded it My Backpack. So if you guys have heard of ClassLink, that's what that is. And we also pull the data from our Google Analytics as well. So we're able to see how many Google Meet sessions are happening, how long they're happening for, how many logins there are from Google Classroom. So, analytics is a huge piece, and we really do see that there is a huge online presence taking place.
And
students
so,
are working.
We've been able to do that also for teams to see how many teams meets we've had. So we're constantly looking and working to see where there may be a gap in what we need to do.
Wonderful. So as far as those that are watching this, and if they're looking at this and they're going, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we need. I would love to see something like this happen in our district, in our community, that kind of thing. But if they're just like right at the very beginning, whether it's a teacher who has a vision that they'd like to push forward, whether it's a, administrator or a school leader who wants to make this change happen, what are some of the first steps that you would suggest that people take?
So the first thing I would suggest is to, if you're a teacher or a school, is to just go to the websites of these, whether it's the 1 Million Project Foundation, whether it's the T-Mobile Empowered Ed, or even a new partnership that we're looking to collaborate with, which is the Verizon Digital Promise Program. These are all opportunities that are available for school districts, schools, classrooms across the country. And between the three of them, you can focus on elementary, middle, or high school students and giving them access to the internet or access to the internet and devices. So that would be the first step.
I'm going to add a fourth one on top of there, Felisa, DonorsChoose. It amazes me how many teachers still don't know about DonorsChoose. I saw a question popped up in the box, is this an option for small schools? Absolutely. Yes. And if you are a teacher in a classroom that is like, you're just in this like little thing by yourself, put a project up on DonorsChoose. And Felisa and I say it all the time. There should never be a time where you don't have a project inside of DonorsChoose. There are people flash funding all the time. And so definitely have a project there. Yeah.
And one thing that I want to reiterate to people when we talk about students not having access, it doesn't just mean that you don't have internet in your home. You could have internet, but it could be slow dial-up internet, or there could be multiple students in the home pulling on the Wi-Fi, and so now it's buffering or it's slow. This is the purpose of these resources, is to make sure that students have access to high-speed internet, especially now that everyone is at home and we're all trying to work online. It's really important for families and students to have access to these resources.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, all the kids on the internet at once and the buffering, that is like
Yes.
story of my life right now.
Right.
I got 3 kids, 14, 12, and 10. And man, when they're
Right.
doing their e-learning activities and I'm working on stuff
Yes.
in here and their mom is teaching online. So like
Yes.
all 5 of us, and it like, you can hear the internet cry.
Yes.
While we're all doing this, you know, it's like,
Yes.
it's sobbing.
The same here in my household too. My husband and I are working, my kids are in their classrooms online. So yes, it's been a struggle.
Absolutely.
And why this it was kind of like really hit home for me is because Atlanta is such the tale of two cities, right? It's the haves and the have-nots. And I know every city has that, but Atlanta is like this unique place where you have people living there like Tyler Perry, and you have that kind of money, and then you have kids with nothing. And so that's why this story stuck out to me so much, that you were able to accomplish that here.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing about Atlanta is that we definitely have the go-getter attitude of just making things happen for our students. For our just so you know about our demographics, we are like 74% African American, 16% Caucasian, maybe 8% Hispanic, and our free reduced lunch rate is like 74%. But we wanted to make sure that all students, regardless of the situation, had access, regardless of your socioeconomic status. If you have 5 kids in the home, that still makes a difference on how your internet is, if it's high speed or not. So we just wanted to make sure all of our students, regardless of the situation, had access to what they need. And this is possible for any school district in the nation.
And I just want to say on top of that too, and I always put Felisa on the spot, always, and I know she's going to shake her head and kill me again, but you just have to try. Like, apply for the grants. It's not going to be, it may not be perfect. It may not be, you know, whatever, but just try. People, I saw a comment, people want to give right now. And so these companies are out there and they want to give all this money. If it weren't for Felisa, like physically writing these grants, like she would have notebooks and pieces of paper everywhere for months. Just do it. So, I mean, I just have to give props to Felisa. She's the one that brought those 2 grants to Atlanta Public Schools. And had it not been for her, her attention to detail and her drive to make sure that this happened and get all of us on board for those 2 specific grants, they wouldn't have happened. So thanks, Felisa.
And on the DonorsChoose front, like exactly what people have been saying. People always ask me, how'd you have all these devices way back in whatever? DonorsChoose has been around for almost 15 years. And I never once didn't have stuff in my classroom because of DonorsChoose.
And even if you have to start out, like Monica said, she got 5 iPads. If you have to start out and do like 5 at a time until you get a class set, do it. Yeah.
Yes.
And think about what you can do with those 5 iPads until you get more. You know, the difference between having none to 5, you know, sometimes teachers will tell me, oh, I'm not 1-to-1, so I can't do that. And it's like, hey, if you're creative and you're resourceful, and if you really, really want to do it, if something is going to make an impact, you find a way to do it, right?
Absolutely.
And I truly believe, even if you have 1-to-1 Chromebooks, you still need a few iPads on the side for some creativity stuff. And so that's how you get that. Like, don't give up. I had green screen studios, all funded by, well, I had Oprah fund everything for me for like a year.
Wow.
Did I not hear that story? Whoa.
You get an iPad, you get an iPad, you get an iPad.
Yeah. That's one good thing about
it. She didn't know me.
Yeah, our teachers get a lot of their items funded, you know, because they keep things in their queue, and we get flash funds all the time in APS. So it definitely works. And there are people and corporations out there looking to support teachers and classrooms every day.
Yeah. So can we park on that for just a second? Because I know, you know, so many, I haven't had very much experience with DonorsChoose, although I've talked to several teachers that have. But for any of the 3 of you in here, I would love to hear if you have any tips or ideas for if it's an individual teacher watching and they're going, hey, my school isn't ready to do this on a big scale, but I'd like to try to do something. And I know some of the ones who have had the most success on DonorsChoose follow a handful of really good tips. And so I wondered what some of those top tips were. Natasha, do you have anything you want to start with?
I do. So back in maybe 2005, when I first heard about DonorsChoose, the project that I put in was to get a class set of books, because I read somewhere that if you requested books, that those were the things that got funded like the quickest. And so I did a class. Was a high school science teacher. I did a class set of books for The Pact and Ben Carson's Gifted Hands, and it got funded. And the books came, and I was like, "Whoa, this really works!" Like, wait a minute. But what I would say is show the need. Like if you're obviously our kids are in need. We want to make sure that they have access to whether it's books or technology or whatever. Show the need that your kids have. Also show that you're going to be creative with whatever it is that you get. Like, of course, don't just request, like if you're an art teacher, for example, oh, I need some construction paper and crayons. What are you going to do with that? So you want to make sure that you're showing the innovation and the creativity that could happen as a result of whatever it is that you're asking for. What else? Make sure that you have everything that you need before you fill out the application. So if you need to kind of glance over it, and I'm still as techie as I am, I'm still a paper girl. So if you need to like print out the application and kind of fill it out and then go back and put the information in, I know you may have to put in some demographics or that kind of thing. Just make sure you have all the information that you need before you fill out that application, but just put it in there and try. And once it's in there, share it on your social media. So if you have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you'll be surprised how many of your friends and family are willing to throw you $5, $10, $20 to make your project come to life. So those would be my top three.
Absolutely.
And Matt, Tim brings up a good point. There are some school districts that don't allow it because you have to sign something that says that they can promote some of the things that you do. And some school districts don't want that to happen, which is a loss for those schools. I never asked. So I probably was at schools that had that, but I was like, and I also want to say this too. I used to have teachers really mad at me. Like the two teachers next door would be like, how's Holly getting everything? And that's the story of my life. So I just was like, whatevs. But like I had people getting mad at me. But what I did is I went on to DonorsChoose and I looked at those people who had like, they sometimes say, and I haven't been on in a while, but they say like, this person's been funded for whatever $1,000. And so I would look at the people who were funded and I would look at what they did. And the first time I ever did it, I was at a low socioeconomic school, but then I went to a high. I went to a one where parents paid $30,000 to go to, but I still needed some stuff because my school district people didn't think it was important. And what I did is I didn't go with the need in that way. I went with the need, like they need to be digitally literate. They need to be whatever. And I went in that way. I never didn't get something funded ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, I haven't had experience with this, but the ones that I've talked to that have, they say, don't start with DonorsChoose. And, we keep mentioning DonorsChoose. I think it would also be useful for us to circle back in a second to the non-DonorsChoose options too, because I know there's lots of options there too. But they say when you're using DonorsChoose, don't start off by saying, I'm trying to fund a classroom set of Chromebooks.
Yeah.
It costs thousands and thousands of dollars because, even if you get the $5 or $10 or 20 or 100 from a handful of people, it starts to show that if your progress is from here to here, it's like, and that's it. And then it stalls out. And so starting with something small and doable and getting that momentum going, I have heard anyway, has been really useful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you become a favorite of, this is what the Oprah thing happened. And Oprah has no idea that she was funding me, but I became a favorite. And so whenever there would be this blanket funding, because I was like a certain level or whatever, I would get that blanket funding. And so I started off small. I started off like you, Felicia. I made a class set of reading books, and they were these ones that were high interest for kids, non-white kids, let's say. And I started with those $1 books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were just talking about DonorsChoose here. Maybe we can switch gears just a little bit as we're kind of getting to the end here. Oh, wait, I didn't ask, Felisa, did you have anything else to add when it comes to DonorsChoose? I'm sorry, we went all the way around the circle and we didn't come back to you.
That's okay. They've covered it. So we're good, Matt.
Okay, good. So the thing I wanted to follow up was if you don't have access to DonorsChoose, or if you're looking for all of your options, I was wanting to hear if we have any other suggestions. And of course, we talked about a couple of those grants. I'm going to be putting those back up on the screen as we go. But even beyond the grants, I wanted to start with one real quick. I know I've worked in 2 different counties in the state of Indiana, and each one of those counties has what's called the community foundation.
Yes.
And, so they've gotten all sorts of money and endowments and stuff, and they're able to give grants on a regular basis. And so really all we had to do was it was different in the 2 counties. One of them, there was a grant cycle, and you had to put your application in at the beginning of the grant cycle and see if it was funded. And usually if it was something for the classroom, it was like $500 or $600, boom, it was a done deal. If you wanted more, they might even do it. But then in the other county, it was kind of on an as needed basis. So you just reached out to them and they said, okay, this looks like it's good. Let's send him a check. And if you didn't know that was out there, or if you didn't ask, Natasha, that was the thing you were saying earlier, was like, you just got to try. You just got to go do it. And a lot of times that stuff's out there. So that's one that I thought I'd throw out there. What else do we have?
So Matt, one thing that I would suggest, and what led me to the Sprint and T-Mobile route, was I started with our Georgia DOE. So your state Department of Education, oftentimes they have grants that they are awarding school districts or classrooms for innovation. I know Georgia had the Governor's Innovation Grants, which was all about, and there were tons of classrooms and school districts that they were looking to fund, and everything wasn't about technology, but it was about a need that was, or a gap that was in education. So I would start there as well to see what your local Department of Ed is doing, or even your local school district, because they're providing funds as well.
And with your local school district, like every school district has a partnerships department of partnerships. Check with them too. Get them involved. Well, most, yeah. Get them involved, because there's, like, here in Atlanta, I mean, of course we're a metro city, but we've got huge partnerships here in Atlanta. But for the most part, every school district could have partnerships, or should have partnerships with local. Yeah, with local companies. So definitely check into them too, because they're always.
I want to say something interesting. Oh, sorry, my thing
went. No, you're good.
Siri. So, something interesting that's happening. Ugh, Siri wants to keep opening. So I work in Oklahoma at a small school district. That's why I keep saying in little ones or whatever. And the reason that I'm there is because they got a K-20 grant from Oklahoma University, or the University of Oklahoma. And most people use that money, and you can get a ton of money, but they use it to buy devices. They use it to do whatever. And they joke that they bought a human. And I come there twice a month, and I help the teachers rethink how they're using the iPads, because they've had them for 6 years and they're doing, IXL, and they're not doing creation. So they bought a human, and people can do that too.
So Holly, I'm glad you said that, because with the Verizon Digital Promise Grant, with theirs, they include an instructional coach and PD with that grant. So that's another option for those schools or school districts that may not have the on-site instructional tech support. This may be an option for you to use a Verizon grant, where there's a dedicated coach that comes with that grant that will help you with the pedagogy and the integration of the technology.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Okay. So my goodness, we have covered a lot of ground in this video. This has been fantastic. And I feel like after having watched this, you've got folks from all different levels of education, from the grassroots in the classrooms with the teachers, all the way up to the very top. I think they've all been empowered with something that they can do. And of course, there's that really important mindset of just go out there and do it, and, try to make something happen. And if your name's Holly Clark, you try not to turn your speakers on. And
no, I was trying to go to your YouTube to comment, but it didn't work. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, we've got all of these links that are available in the comments to go to the Sprint 1 Million project, the Digital Promise, and then of course there's the T-Mobile grant. I know that link on the screen down there isn't easy to type in, but it is in the comments. So hopefully you've been able to grab that. So anybody have any real quick parting words as we wrap this video up?
So I would just tell everyone that just don't be afraid to try. If you will succeed, whatever it is better than where you were. So just don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
And I would just say, fight for your kids, fight for your classroom. Don't take no for an answer legally, and just keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And I went all Alice Keeler on grants, and I made a spreadsheet before spreadsheets were cool. They're still, to me, not cool. I don't love them. But I would make a spreadsheet of when dates were coming and what was coming up, and I was on it.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm actually working on that now for next year, trying to pull in more schools, more charter schools into our Sprint initiative. So that will be how I spend the rest of my afternoon.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Again, we've got all of these grants that your school district can go after. Go hit up DonorsChoose. If you don't hit up DonorsChoose, hit up some of those, community organizations that may be able to help you up. And just like Natasha was saying earlier, don't take no for an answer. Fight for your kids. So, if you have enjoyed this live stream and would like to get more like it, please do subscribe to the Ditch That Textbook YouTube channel, where we're going to be getting a lot more of these. Of course, you can also go to the Ditch That Textbook Facebook page to get more of them. And then Holly, do you want to tell them real quick about where they can get your Facebook stuff too?
Yeah, you can just, for Infuse Classroom, you can go to facebook.com/groups, Infuse Classroom. Also, I have some videos on my YouTube channel as well for YouTube Teach Clark, and hollyclark.org. So we're sharing out a ton of resources right now, Matt and I together. So just heading to all of our stuff right now is probably a good idea, along with onlinelearningideas.com.
Yes, that's right. Let's put a link to that down at the bottom real quick. onlinelearningideas.com, which is this website that Holly and I are using. It's basically a big curation of some of the best ideas being shared out on the web, in social media, and on blogs and videos from teachers. We're just pulling it together all in one place where you can find things. There are new ideas there every day. So of course you can go check that out too. So if you were here live, thank you so much for interjecting your comments and everything. If you're watching this on the replay, hope this has been useful to you. Again, thank you so much, Felisa and Natasha, for joining us. You both were fantastic.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
All right. Very good. So for Holly Clark to my side here, my name's Matt Miller. Thank you so much for joining us on this video, and we hope to get to see you on another one. Take care.